Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Yajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Yajajana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjali Hari Jaya Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Vishnumat Bhagavan Swami Gacchara Rasara Sisvadesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Namachara Haridas Thakur ki Jai Prem Sikaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Vasti Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai Shri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopira Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Navadip Dham ki Jai Ganga Jamuna Tulsi Bhakti Devi ki Jai Oti Vaishnava Vrindi ki Jai Samaveta Bhakti Vrindi ki Jai Go Brahmanandi All glories to some of the devotees All glories to some of the devotees All glories to some of the devotees All glories to Sri Guru Sri Guranga All glories to Srila Prabhupada Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthana Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasudi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Now this is an explanation of the fifth canto of Bhagavatam dealing with the structure of the universe. In the second canto of Bhagavatam, there was a list of the 10 topics of Bhagavatam, which had Sarga and Visarga, and then it had Sthana as the third item. And there was 9 items plus a 10th item called Ashraya, who is the final cause of everything, that is Krishna. So everything is somehow related to that cause. So all the different topics like Sarga, Visarga, and Sthana are related to Krishna. So we should never forget that when we start analyzing the structure of the universe. So that's the topics we're discussing this way. Sarga, Visarga, and Sthana. So Sthana means place. And Visarga means the creation of the living entities by Brahma. So the living entities with material bodies need a place to stay and live. So that is what is discussed in the fifth canto, the geography of the universe, the places for the various types of living entities. Yeah. So Stana refers to the Lord's excellence in situating the living beings within the universe. So the topic is geography or whatever, the places of the living entities. And by describing these, we understand the skill of the Lord in making this arrangement for living entities. So this description is from the point of view of Bhagavatam itself. It is pretty straightforward. The difficulty that we have in understanding this is simply that it doesn't correspond to our modern idea about a spherical Earth revolving around the sun, floating in space, and a galaxy, whatever like that. So that's the main problem with it for most people. But as far as understanding the structure of the universe, it's very logical. So, in the fifth canto, when it starts discussing this, it first discusses Bhumandala, which is a disk kind of in the center of that spherical universe with a shell on it, and the ocean at the bottom, Garbhodak Ocean at the bottom. So in the middle of it, there is this flat surface, more or less flat surface, called the Bhumandala. It's kind of in the center of the universe, halfway between the top and the bottom. So here, Bhumandala is defined that which extends as far as the sun shines, and within which the moon, along with the other luminaries, is seen. So this area. There's another part of that Bhumandala outside, but it's all dark, half of it. So the inner portion has got a big mountain range. Inside that, the sun is shining, and the moon and all the planets are revolving. Outside, it's so high that the light can't get through. So the half of the universe is darkness, and then we get the shell of the universe around that. So in any case, what is the purpose? Oh, mind fixed on the Lord's gross form made of matter can absorb itself in the Supreme Brahman, Bhagavan, Vasudev, light of the soul, who's beyond matter. Therefore, you should explain the structure of the universe. So by understanding the structure to some degree, we can understand the skill of the Lord in making this universe. That's gross matter. So, as far as the sun shines, so we see that the yellow portion is where the sun shines. The other what color is in their orangey section is the Loka mountain range, which is pretty fat and pretty high. And beyond that, it's all darkness. That's the gray area on the outside, which constitutes half of it, almost like that. See? So this is the universe we know it, the Bhumandala. It's also described in some places as a lotus, or the central portion at least is like a lotus. So this is the Jambudweep portion, with Mount Meru in the middle. So the Mount Meru is described like the center of a lotus. Everyone knows that the center of the lotus is like this. So this is what Mount Meru looks like. And then the Varshas are arranged around it like petals on a lotus. So we have a lotus figure here, just as we have a lotus to describe Goloka, Vrindavan, and Bhakti, etc. So we have a lotus here in the universe itself. So in that center we have this Meru, mysterious mountain, upside down mountain, so to speak. Generally, we think of mountains. This is the opposite, like this. Opposite. But this was going this way. It's a strange looking mountain. So some identify this Meru with some peak in the Himalayas, and even like Kailash. Of course, the shape is different again, like Kailash. But quite, there's a pivot around which everything revolves. And so there, here we have a representation of the Uttarakhanda, one of the khandas on top, and Jambudvip at the bottom here, and Mount Meru in the middle, and Ketumala and Bhadrasra on the sides. Actually, Jambudvip is that whole thing, actually. That's kind of misplaced there. But we have Varsha on the bottom, like this. So this is one more depiction, which actually turned out to be the sign of the Knights Templar, actually, for some reason. But the Sumeru is quite famous because even in Indonesia we have a Sumeru mountain. Huh? And in Tanzania we also have a Sumeru mountain. So it's quite famous as a mountain. Huh? And we have a similar pivot for the whole universe in various, we say, mythologies of the world also. Huh? This one here is kind of a picturesque representation of the Vedic version with the snake on the bottom. The turtle is next. Then we get the elephants in the directions. Then we get the Bhumandala, and in the center we get the Mount Meru, kind of like that. But we have also in Norse mythology, in Norway and Scandinavia, they have a similar type of representation, like this, with a central mountain in the middle and everything around it. And it's also famous in Buddhism. So we get Sumeru in Buddhist. Here's the depiction of us even going up like this. It's the inverted mountain also in the center, and then we have the Varshas and Dvipas around that. Huh? This is just some glorification of that mountain. At the time Ananda saw the splendor and majesty of Amitayus, Sumeru, which rises above the whole world, there was no place which is not illuminated by the light emanating from his body of glory. Like that. So this is another depiction of that central mountain in the middle. The Buddhists also have, they go to some degree to try to visualize this. This is somewhat different from the Vedic conception, but they go into a lot of details, just as the Bhagavatam goes into a lot of details. But the main thing of interest here is that mountain in the middle, the Sumeru, is like this, or like this. This is another representation here. And we'll find that in architecture it has also become a central theme. In fact, often the temple spire, the main temple spire itself, is compared to Mount Meru. It's like the center of the universe, and that's where you put the Lord, because he's in the center of everything. And the whole of Angkor Wat, for instance, is actually Mount Meru in the middle, and then it's a diagram of the universe, so to speak. So this is like Vedic cosmology explained. In the temple itself is the universe with the various, there's various layers and walls around it, so that represents the various, etc., expanding out with the Mount Meru in the middle. So this is we can say, a graphic representation of the Bhumandala in the temple structure itself. Which is also interesting because we're in the TOAB, we're trying to express the universe also, but it's already been done. And moreover, if you explain this to people who like tourists to go there, that's okay, they'll accept it. Okay, universe with center and there's expansion in the limit. So more or less they'll accept that concept as a representation of the universe, without having to go into the details of if we have a geocentric universe or something, or flat Earth, etc. But they can accept this diagram as it is. So the Bhagavatam describes all the different areas on the Bhumandala first, then it will describe the upper and lower areas. And everything is laid out very symmetrically, and it gives the dimensions for everything. And so it all adds up. If we add everything up, it adds up to very symmetrical figures. So the central, we got Mount Meru in the center. We see this is a plan view of everything. And there's a square area around that called Ilavartavasha. Ilavrita Varsha. Varsha, so to speak. We have two Varshas next to it on either side, Ketumala Varsha and Bhadrasva Varsha. And then we have on the bottom and top, we have three Varshas each. And the bottom one is Bharat Varsha. That's India. Then we get a Himalaya mountain range. Then we get the Kimpurusha Varsha. Then we get another mountain range. Then we get Hari Varsha. Then we get another mountain range. Then we have the whole central area. And on the top we have another mountain range. And we have Ramyaka Varsha, Hiranmaya Varsha, and Kulu Varsha on top, each with a mountain range in between. So the whole thing is called Jambudweep. And so Jambudweep has all of these Varshas within it, separated by huge mountain ranges. And in the center is this Mount Meru. So the differences are also, we can say, given in the Bhagavatam, how wide the mountain range is, how wide each Varsha is. So it's all laid out mathematically, and you can make a diagram with that, with all the different amounts, which I just stuck in here. So it comes out to 100,000. Is 100,000 there?
Yes.
It comes out this top-wise and this way, so it comes out as a circle, ultimately. So you see, there's each of the top one is 9,000, 9,000, 9,000. The bottom one is 9,000, 9,000, 9,000. Then there's the mountain ranges in between, all equal. And then we have the middle ones here, the huge ones in the middle. 31,000 on both sides. And 34,000 in the middle. Yeah, and the 2,000 refers to the mountain range around the Ilavrita Varsha. So if you add everything up, then it comes to this total 100,000, up and down and crosswise. Then there's some more details given. In that central island, Ilavrita Varsha, we have Mount Meru, and around that we got other mountain ranges stuck in there like this. And then there's a big tree on top of each mountain range. So we get a banyan top one, mango tree on one side, a jambu tree on the other side, and a kadamba tree on the other side, on these four central mountains surrounding Mount Meru. And then we get two extra mountains on either side also like this. See, and that's something like this. So this also gives the height of that Mount Meru, and it's very high. We see that the Mount Meru is extending so high up. These are yojanas, and it goes like 100,000 yojanas, and a yojana is 8 miles, so it's 800,000 miles up. Which is bigger than the whole Earth, much bigger than the whole Earth, as we know it. So it's a huge structure, towering up there. And then we get these little mountain ranges around it, and then we get the Varshas around that. And the Bhagavatam particularly gives all these dimensions, so much at the base, 16,000 at the base, 32,000 at the top. So not that at the base when it goes into the earth, so it's twice as big at the top as it is at the bottom, and then it goes into the earth also for some reason. Earth itself is only 870 yojanas. So we see that 16,000 yojanas for the base of Mount Meru. It's much bigger. So you take the Earth, we know it's a little spot there actually. So this is like some huge structure that we can't compare the Earth to like this. So here we have a description with the central mountain, and we got those little mountains around it, and we got the outer mountains there as well. We can see here these are the mountain ranges dividing the different Varshas. In the bottom, Bharat Varsha and Kimpurusha Varsha, and like this, Hari Varsha on the bottom, and the top we have Kuru like that. And then we have the two on the side, like this on either side of it. So, and Mount Meru in the middle. That's a view here again. And note the top. There's some interesting figures in the top. I'll explain later. And just at the base, we see there is these, in the central square, these figures which turn into these figures, which are those mountains I mentioned. See the little tree on the top? This is the mango. That must be the jumbo tree and the mango tree and the kadamba tree, like on top of that mountain there. And then we got the outer mountains, 2 outer mountains beyond that also. So that's the basic structure of the Bhumandala, which we saw like this, and then like this, and like that. So that central portion is there, and then we got these varshas here, and it's a huge structure. So we can't even give this to our, there's nothing to compare it to in our present idea about what the earth is, and all this is quite different, completely different. Yeah, and on the top of this mountain, Brahma has one of his abodes. Sometimes he comes down from Satyaloka and he sits on top of this mountain. That's Brahma. And then around on each side we have the deities of the directions. Indra in the east, Varuna in the west, Kuvera in the north, Yama in the south. And Nritti in one section, Agni in another section, Shiva and Vayu. So they have their abodes here. The Devatas have their abodes here also. It is also said that the Ganga falls on top of that mountain and then spreads out in the 4 directions. And then it goes, from there it goes down to those mountains and bounces off the mountains like this. And then it comes down onto Bharatvarsha this way. Gets down to Bharatvarsha that way, bouncing off those mountains, top of the mountains. So, these dvipas, or the varshas, are inaccessible to us. We are in Bharatvarsha. We can't get to Kimpurusha Varsha, Hari Varsha, or the other places. These are called Boma Svarga, or a Svarga-like place on the earth level. The actual Svarga is up above. So this is, on this Bhumandala, we have these places which are like Svarga. So it's the Devatas, after their punyas are exhausted, they fall down onto these Varshas and they can enjoy some more. So they're called Boma Svarga. So each of these varshas also have their particular deity and a particular devotee worshipping the deity. So we see that on Hari Varsha we have Narsimha and Prahlad worships him. On Kimpurusha Varsha we have Rama and Hanuman is worshipping him. And on Bharat Varsha we have Narayan and Narada is worshipping him. In Bhadrasa we have Hayagriva, the horse avatar. No, it's Bhadrasva and Hayagriva was there, and Bhadrasva is the person who's worshipping. In Ketumala we have Kamadev and Lakshmi is worshipping. And in Ilavarta Varsha we have Sankarshan and Shiva is worshipping. In Ramyaka we have Matsya Avatar and Vaivasvata is worshipping. He's the Manu. He's actually our Manu. And so he's worshipping Matsya. And in Hiranmaya we have Kurmadev and Aryama is worshipping. And in Kuru Varsha we have Varaha. And Earth, Bhumi Devi is worshipping. So in this way we have these for each of those varshas, and a principal devotee also. So this is the central dvipa. Then we have the outer dvipas. We see here the rings. Now this is a Buddhist depiction again, with Mount Meru in the middle. So there is an ocean around the central island of Jambudvip. Then there's a ring of land. Then there's another ocean, ring of land, another ocean, another ring of land, and another ocean. So there's these concentric rings of oceans and islands. Yeah? Like that. Each one, the diameter, we could say that the diameter of each ring is the diameter of the previous ring, like each ocean. The one outside it is twice as wide. The width of it between the dvipas is twice as wide. So they actually become huge as we go out, because each island and each thing is expanding at a rate of 2, the width of it. Moreover, these oceans are not the oceans. Around Jambudvipa we have a saltwater ocean. Then we have a dvipa called Plakshadvipa because there's a plaksha tree on top. And then we have a sugarcane juice ocean, which is twice as wide. We have an island called Salmali Dvipa. There's a Salmali trees on that one. Then we have a liquor ocean. And then we have Kusa Dvipa with lots of kusa grass on it. And then we have another ocean and another island like that. And as you see here also, each of these islands has a particular deity. So on the Plakshadvipa they worship the sun deity. On Salmaladvipa they worship the moon deity. And Kushadvipa they worship Agni, fire deity. All of that red stuff is the little spot in the middle. That's up to here. And then we get another Ghee ocean. And then we get another Dvipa called Krauncha Dvipa, and Varuna is the ruler. Then we get a milk ocean, which is twice as wide as the previous one. And then we get another island called Shakadvip. There's a Shaka tree on that. And Vayu is the deity worshipped there. Then we get a yogurt ocean. And then we get final island called Pushkara Dvipa, where Brahma sometimes comes. And there's a line within that Brahma's dome. That's called the Manasutara mountain range. And it's above that that the sun rides on his chariot on this mountain range within the middle of Pushkara Dvipa. Then we have a huge freshwater ocean, twice as big as the yogurt ocean. And then we've got something called the Golden Land outside that. Same dimensions as the freshwater ocean. And nobody lives there. It's very bright. Because it's made out of gold. And then we get that local mountain range, that huge mountain range. Very high, and no light can penetrate above it or anything like that. The sun is going below that actually. And then beyond that is complete flat and dark to the edge of the universe. So this is Bhumandala. So the Bhumandala is huge and nothing on it. And then we get the mountain range, that huge mountain range. Then we get the golden mountain, and inside that we start getting the dvipas where the people live. And then finally, in the very center, we get Jambudvipa. And in Jambudvipa, we get a little Bharvarsha. And then in the middle, we get Mount Meru sticking up, 100,000 yojanas. So that constitutes the Bhumandala. That's giving some dimensions. Anyway, yeah, this is how we can diagram it. This is half the universe with Mount Meru stuck in the middle there on one side, on the right side. Then we have the sun revolving around and Manasutara mountain range there, Pushkar Dvip. And then we get the freshwater ocean, then we get the Golden Land. And then finally we get the Loka mountain range. And the sun cannot penetrate beyond that. And then we get darkness on the half of the universe outside. That outer ring, which is this ring here, that blue ring, that's the darkness ring, like that. So that's the basic structure of the universe. Of course, it may not be flat. That doesn't really describe the Loka mountain range, but anyway, it's high. It's very high and it's very, very massive. And we see here the dimension, 500 million yojanas across. And similarly, up and down is 500 million yojanas, both ways. The sun is in the center in one sense, from the vertical point of view, but it's not in the center from the going this way horizontal, because it's revolving this way around Mount Meru, on top of the Manasutara mountain range. This this way it's vertical, 500 million across, 500 million up and down. So, within that Bhumandala, that shell or that crust, we got the lower planets, all situated like little caves. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala, all stuck within there in little caves, one above the other. Then, below that, we got this hellish region, they see the little hell down there, and we got the Garbhodak Ocean at the bottom. And if you add everything up to the sun, then it adds up to half of the universe, which was half of that, 250 million yojanas up to the sun. So in that way, it's very symmetrical. And the Garbhodak Ocean is huge, you see, 800,000 yojanas. Yeah, so that total is 250. Comes up 250, I think, if you add everything up. Yeah, which is actually half of the total, so, like that, going up and going across either way. Yeah, this is just another view of that, but a more condensed view. So then above this, here we have the Bhumandala, that blue section, and here we get the distances where the upper planets dwell. If they revolve or not, I don't know, but anyway, they're up there above by this amount of distance. So we get the sun, and then we get Dhruvaloka, then we get Mahaloka, then we get Janaloka, then we get Tapaloka, and finally we get Satyaloka at the very top. And if you add up all these distances between them, then it comes to 250 again, above the sun. You go from the sun upwards, and you add everything up, it comes to 250. So 250 above the sun, 250 below the sun. So that's 500 million total. Okay. So, sun to earth is 100,000 above the Bhumandala, yeah? And then below that we get Rahu and what we call the Antariksha, which is Bhuvarloka area, and then 100 yojanas, which is 800 miles. This is the distance is below up to that Bhuvarloka where all the ghosts reside. The Rakshasas reside up in that area, Antariksha. Above that we get Rahu, then we get the sun. So, above the sun and up to Dhruvaloka, we saw Dhruvaloka over here at 3,800,000 yojanas, and then the sun was 100. So between that we get the other planets. This is only the vertical distance, not the their orbits. It's the vertical distance. So above the sun we get the moon. Vertical distance. But the sun actually is way out on that revolving around the Manastar Mountains. For us it's very, very far away. Yeah, that's a very, very great distance. But vertically above the Bhumandala it's 10,000 yojanas. The moon is 100,000. Above that we get the stars, the nakshatras. Then we get the heart shape, that's Venus. And the green one is Mercury. Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Nakshatras are the stars there, and that's 300,000. And then above that, we get Venus, another 200,000. Above that, 200,000, we get Mercury. Above that, we get, must be Mars, huh? Yeah. And above that, we get Jupiter. And above that, we get Saturn, the blue one at the top. And then above that we get the seven sages, and finally Dhruvaloka. And the total is 3,900,000 yojanas. So that's only the vertical distance, not the actual orbits and the distance from what we can see. So, as I said, actually the sun is very, very far away because it's 100,000 above the Bhumandala, but it is, what is that? 15,750,000 yojanas away from Mount Meru. So it's quite far away from us. We're over here a little bit on the Bharat Varsha. But it's very far away because this is on the Plakshadweep, which is the outer island. Very, very far away. Yeah. That was way over here.
Yep.
Yeah. That next to the Golden Land there. Here we are. Yeah. Pushkar Dweep, sorry, Pushkar Dweep. So the sun revolves on that, in that middle of it, that Manasatar mountain range in the middle. Like that. So very, very far away. Okay, so that's the dimensions. And the heights and everything of the different planetary systems and the Bhumandala and the lower planetary systems, Garbhodaka Ocean, like that. And we have the breadth. So it all adds up very symmetrically. Okay, so the planets are not stationary. They are rotating around this Mount Meru. And this has been matter of curiosity for mankind, not only in India, but around the world. And everybody's looking at those planets as they move in the sky. Of course, everything is moving at night. The whole zodiac is moving, but within that we get the planets, and they're moving within the zodiac very slowly. The fastest planet is the moon, so that we can see it moves every day. It will rise in the horizon at nighttime. There's a full moon when the sun is setting, but then it starts changing, and it's going rising at different times every day after that. So gradually it's moving across the zodiac, and all the other planets are also moving much slower than that. So the sun moves one zodiac sign a month, and goes one cycle. The moon goes once a month, 27 days. It goes around the whole zodiac, and the whole zodiac is moving every night and every day as well. So it's a little bit complicated, but the ancient people were very fascinated with that, and they were observing those planets moving within the zodiac signs. That's why they built these structures like Stonehenge as an observatory to try to calculate the eclipses and movements of the planets like the sun and the moon, etc. Of course, we have Egypt also like that. We get the ziggurats and things, viewing. We get similar structures among the Aztecs, and the Mayans, like that. They had their observatories like this to look at the planets, and they had their famous calendar that ends in, what was it, 2012? Whenever it ended. And Peru, we have a different civilization. They had this observatory here, and this is each notch goes 1 month in the sun, so they could measure the sun traveling each month. That's way. And of course, we have Machu Picchu, like this, famous, and Angkor Wat, built according to the orientation, I think, Venus, rising Venus at a certain point of the year. We have astronomy in China as well, like this. And of course, we have India. There, one in Varanasi, one in Delhi, I think one in Jaipur. So these were meant to observe the movements of those planets against the stars. So they needed some accurate records, and they would sit up there every night and make a record and move it a little bit, maybe like this, or every 2 days they would see how it moves. Based on the calculations, they compile records for years on end, and then they can make a formula so that you don't have to look at the sky anymore. You can tell next year when the planet is going to be where. They make mathematical formulas for this. So that's what we find in the Surya Siddhanta and those other astronomical works. They give you the formulas for which you can calculate the movements of and therefore locate the planets at any particular time. So everything is moving around the pole star. We saw that Dhruvaloka was there. That's the pole star, was at a certain height, and then we had all these other planets there below it. So it sits in the middle above Mount Meru, and all the other planets are going around it, like this, all the stars, etc., like that. So when you can just take a time-lapse photography of the night, and you see everything is revolving around the pole star. And so that's directly above the Mount Meru. Which leads us to the idea that maybe Mount Meru is also the North Pole. Because that's exactly what the pole star is, above the thing like that. So it's in line with the North Pole also. So that's another analogy we have here. Huh? So, constellations were located. Of course, the whole sky is moving all night and all day like this, but they understood there were constant, those constellations. The constellations never moved around, the stars. Huh? So, in order to locate the planets, and they named the constellations. So from that we get the zodiac signs, and we get the nakshatras, 27 nakshatras. So we have 12 zodiac signs, each 30 degrees each. And within that we can locate all the planets. And we have another system with 27 nakshatras, particularly for the moon, because it moves so fast. So we have 27 nakshatras, and every day it's going one of those nakshatras approximately. So these are also described in the Bhagavatam. It gives names of the nakshatras, names of the zodiac signs, etc. I discuss this again in that other astrology and karma. But anyway, we get the zodiac signs like Cancer and Gemini and Orion and Taurus, Aries, etc. And then we get what's called the Sushumna Chakra, which is supposed to be like a dolphin. I don't know how it's like a dolphin, but anyway, all the nakshatras, or the 27 nakshatras, are stuck on this body of the dolphin. It's kind of swirling around like this. This is more, like I say, a geometric thing. So here we have in the center we have the zodiac signs, 12 zodiac signs, each 30 degrees. And then the outer ring we got the nakshatras. So this is not a spatial diagram, it's just to show the divisions. So within each zodiac sign we get, I think, 2 1/4 nakshatras, whatever, covering the same area. And then within that ring, all the planets seem to be moving. They're moving within that. So sometimes the moon will be in Leo, and then it'll go to Virgo, and then it go to Libra, then it goes to Scorpio, like that. So the moon is going around like that, and sun is going around like that, but at a different speed. And then all the other planets are also moving. And the slowest planet is Saturn. It takes 27 years to go around once, this whole thing. Very, very slow planet. So if you have Saturn in the wrong place, it means everything goes slow for you. That's the slowest planet. We can also think of it not from Earth, simply from the whole galaxy point of view. We can locate all the nakshatras somewhere like that. Anyway, okay. So everything's moving around the pole star, and the signs and the nakshatras, they are fixed, and then against that the planets are moving slowly through the signs and the nakshatras. So astronomy was developed to predict where a planet would be on a certain day without having to look at the sky. But to do that, then they had to build observatories and start recording the movement of the planets each day. And after several years of doing that, then they can make a formula for that. And those formulas are given in the Surya Siddhanta and other treatises. So why were they interested in the planets so much? Not only in India, but around the world. Everyone was looking at the sky. They built these huge structures just to look at the sky everywhere. Very great fascination with the sky for some reason. One is weather. Particularly the moon. We know the moon cycles have to do with the weather, so that's why a lot of calendars are lunar calendars, because the seasons change with the phases of the moon, and the cycles of the moon from Purnima to Amavasya, etc. Even now they have almanacs in the West, and they use the almanac. It's based on the moon phases, and then, according to that, they plant the crops, harvest the crops, weed the garden, all this stuff. The weather and the seasons, etc., are all determined by, of course, the sun, very important. We get the summer solstice, the winter solstice, and the summer solstice, and the equinoxes, etc. And these determine the seasons, hot and cold. So that's also, all of this is good for agriculture. In India, they also developed a system of auspicious, inauspicious times, tithis, nakshatras, etc., and combinations, so that therefore useful for that. If we know where the planets are at certain times, then we can say it's an auspicious time or inauspicious time. And then finally, they use the planetary positions to do astrology, and they interpret where the planets are and what sign. And from that, they can make astrological predictions. So these are some of the reasons for noting the movements of the planets in the sky. So this whole structure is there with Mount Meru in the middle, everything revolving around, would somehow explain how the planets are moving within the nakshatras. Now, this whole explanation with a flat Earth, etc., has a few problems from our point of view in the modern world. And even in ancient times, perhaps, they had the same idea. One, of course, if it's flat, and we have an ocean, then you fall off the edge of the ocean somewhere when you go on your ship. Like that. But that problem doesn't happen in the Vedic conception, because you can't get that far. You can't get to the edge of the thing, because there's that big mountain range and the big local mountain ranges there, and we can't even get beyond the salt ocean to get to the next dvipa. So you're stuck. You can't get over. What holds up this whole thing is a problem. Who holds up the whole disk? So in the Vedic system, we have a turtle there, and we have the elephants there, and we got Shesha there, etc., holding the whole thing up. And now a main problem is whether it's geocentric or heliocentric, and this one, everything is going around the center like this. So the sun is revolving and all the planets are revolving. In our modern theory, it's the sun in the center, everything is revolving around the sun. So it's not quite like that. It's not perfectly geocentric also, because our Bharatvarsh is not in the center, Mount Meru is in the center, and everything's going around that. But nevertheless, all the planets, including the sun, are revolving in this scenario. Whereas in the modern one, it's the sun is in the center, everything is revolving around that. But this does not matter in one sense, because motion is relative anyway. And we can think of the Earth as stationary and everything else moving around that. It doesn't matter. The only problem is, calculation point, it's more complicated to think of the Earth as stationary and then do everything in relation to the Earth, because the orbits of the planets become very complicated if we take the Earth as stationary. Why? Because everything is not related in a symmetrical thing around the Earth. If it's going around the sun and not the Earth, then it makes it much more complicated. So therefore, the orbits will not be circular. They'll be very complicated, which I'll show them. Nevertheless, you can calculate, even if you take the Earth as a center, if you do your calculations properly, like they did in ancient time, then you can come up with a formula, and you can predict where the planet's going to be at a certain time. Whether you use, say, the Earth is in the center or the sun is in the center. Of course, if we use the sun in the center, it's much easier because they're more or less circular orbits, slightly oval, but everything going around the sun, so it's easier to calculate that way and then transfer back to what we see. But you can calculate either way, so it doesn't really matter whether we say it's circular or heliocentric or geocentric, whatever. Now, the main problem, of course, is modern science gives us photographs of an Earth from a spacecraft or something, or a satellite, and it looks round, circular, or let's say spherical, whereas this one shows an Earth which is like flat, Bhumandala. It's not even flat, actually, because it's part of a flat surface, and with a Mount Meru in the middle, which we can't even see. And then our Bharatvarsh is stuck on the edge of that. And here we get another conception of a spherical Earth floating in space. Very, very different. So this is the main problem we have in understanding the Vedic cosmology, because it's quite different from our perception at the moment. Huh? Of course, there's other problems, because we do see the sun rise and set, and the planets rising and setting. But if you have a flat model, then nothing ever rises, because it's going around like this on a mountain range all the time, and we're situated here. So nothing really sets. It may disappear behind Mount Meru, but it never goes down below the horizon. So that becomes a problem also for us to explain. Nevertheless, our acharyas and others were intelligent enough to realize that also there's some problem there. It's a very simple problem that even a child probably can say. It doesn't make sense because, but it seems like a contradiction because of that. But there's no explanation given by our acharyas why contradiction is there. So what does it mean? Why do we have this description? So Sariputta in his book theorizes that it can have several types of meaning, talking about Mount Meru and places, etc. One is it represents India and surrounding areas around India. We can get bigger and say it's the Earth, and then North Pole is the Mount Meru, and the whole Earth like that. We can take this a solar system with the sun in the center, and then our Earth in the center, and the other planets moving around. Or we can take it as a galaxy, or the whole universe, even the whole. So we have layers of meaning to this whole idea of Bhumandala and everything. So in Sariputta's book, he talks about how we have the central area there with Mount Meru somewhere in Central Asia, and then we get the different places like that. We can locate India and Himalayan regions, Mongolia, etc. And finally we get that central island, and we get the area above that, which goes into maybe Russia or something like that. So that's, and if you look at the rivers and stuff, it kind of corresponds to that also. There's a correspondence there. So in one sense, you can say it's the area around India is symbolized by this. Some people have even gone so far as to try to identify those different oceans. This is very theoretical, like the saltwater ocean and the milk ocean and the liquor ocean or whatever, and the ghee ocean and the sugarcane ocean and the yogurt ocean and the sweetwater ocean, like that. So theoretical, some people have identified things like that, which are not rings, but just bodies of water. Now, if we're to take the not just local map of India and the area around, we take it as the whole Earth as we know it, then you can take the pole star, or the North Pole as the, like Mount Meru, the central thing, and then all the continents are kind of related to that. And we could just take, even if it's a sphere, we can kind of open it up and flatten it out like that, like they do on the maps. They give you a flat map like that. Usually it's this way, but you could take it from the top and then flatten all the continents out, and then we would get a thing like this, or something like this, which is Mercator's map. This is the Norse, from the Norsemen of Scandinavia. This is their conception of the universe. And so we see the mountain in the middle and the tree on the top of it, and then the whole circular thing also. Very, very similar. So we take the North Pole on the top, then with something like that. and then you flatten everything out just to make it into a map. So it then becomes Mount Meru in the middle, and the Dvipas around there somehow or other. And on the top we got something very nice like Santa Claus. Special place. So that's a flat Earth. It becomes flat. Do that to it. So in this way we can maybe locate Mount Meru in the middle and the different varshas around it in that way. Now what do we do with the Dvipas and the oceans here? Of course we could say there's different oceans on Earth or different seas, etc., and do that. Another way is to take the whole thing as a solar system. Just as we have the sun in the center like that, we would put the Earth in the center and we have everything going around it. Now the difference is that if we put the sun not in the center and we put this Mount Meru in the center, practically speaking, the planets are not going to have circular orbits in relation to our Mount Meru as we know it now. What will happen? They will have very strange orbits, and if we trace it out, and if we take any planet in relation to the Earth, what happens is you get an orbit like that. Here we have 1, 2, 3 planets and their orbits. We get an orbit like this in relation to the Earth when you trace it out, or we get an orbit like this, or we get a very complicated orbit like this, like a spirograph. So we get also, for each planet we'll get some strange flower shape. This is Venus, for instance. This is Mars. This is Mercury.
Wow.
In the center, they're very complicated. And each has, it's like an island, you see? That orbit. It has an inner core, and then it has the whole section there with an outer surface and an inner that. Each one. Actually took the dimensions of the orbits of these planets, like this inner and outer ones, and then he yojanas, because we saw there were each dvipa and ocean was there, and he got a correspondence between the different planets, the inner and outer orbits, and the different dvipas. There was a little variation, but it was more or less quite interesting how that worked out. So that was one theory he had, that it was mapping the planets with their complicated orbits in relation to the Earth. The dvipas were like the orbits, inner and outer orbits of the different planets, like this. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it. Okay, so we have here the central thing like this. And then we got the, as I said, the little thing in the middle are where we reside, and then the whole outer section is blank. It's the darkness, and we get the mountain range there, like that. And we get the sun moving around, Manasatara mountain range, going like this. So we get a revolution going through the zodiac signs, etc. Okay, we have the zodiac moving in relation to there, and then we get the planets moving this way against that. So the whole zodiac seems to be moving around the Earth, and the planets are going this way. Now the planets these are only the heights of the planets in their orbit, not their actual orbit, how they're going around this way. But we can take these orbits something like this. If we take a horizontal, all the orbits are not flat. They're inclined slightly. So if we take the plane and then we measure the incline, then we could take that as the distance above the Bhumandala, so to speak, for each planet. And that way we could get these different planets. And whether it works out or not, I don't know, but this is the idea of elevation of the planet above the flat surface, which we call the Bhumandala. And then we can get these various elevations. So that's one way of looking at this. There's an interesting thing, and it's called the shifting pole star. I think it's 37,000 years. The pole star goes like this. it doesn't stay in one place, it shifts around. And so that it's not north, true north all the time. It moves away. So actually the whole pole star goes like this over 37,000 years. It moves in this. Huh? They say the Earth is wobbling a little bit like this, so it does this somehow, right? So it's not that the star, but the Earth is kind of wobbling a little bit. So it's called the shifting North Pole, so to speak. So it kind of moves in a circle. So I don't know if that's true or not, but perhaps that's this what we call the Mount Meru thing, where it's the Mount Meru should be there, but then it's a circular, goes around and a little bit off that orbit, and which is like this cone-shaped thing, like this, like that. Maybe like that. Who knows? So if we put Mount Meru in the middle, and then we have day and night, and we have a more spherical, earthy planet, then we can describe day and night and whatever like that in relation to the North Pole, etc. So it's easy to do. And of course, as I said, from the flat conception, you cannot get the rising and setting of the sun. Doesn't work out too well. And if you got the curved or a spherical Earth, then it would work out. But it doesn't really explain that in the Bhagavatam. In one place, it mentions a bhugola, or a spherical bhu also, but usually we get the flat one. So it's a little bit contrary. Which one are they talking about? Surya Siddhanta, of course, in other works, they seem to they give us the spherical Earth. And it is said that Aryabhata, he actually understood the nature of eclipses and stuff, just like modern science does, and the rotation of the Earth and the spherical nature, etc. In long before Galileo and Copernicus in the West were making the same ideas. He did it like 2,000 years previously. He even calculated the dimension of the Earth, and the diameter of the Earth. So we have these two theories here. One is the astronomers like Aryabhata and others, mathematicians, and then we have the Puranic version, which looks a little bit different. How to correlate the two is a little bit difficult to do for us. And so, as I said, you can take the Bhagavatam version as a little bit symbolic, with various levels of meaning in it, and not, let's say, so accurate in the scientific sense of the term. But there is some indication also of the rotation of the Earth, all this quotation from Bhagavatam, so it indicates something like that. Now, we have this is more theoretical, of course, we have the upper planets. So actually there's 7 layers of atmosphere also on Earth, apparently. And if we look, there's 7 layers of Earth also, inside the Earth, the core of the Earth. There's 7 different layers down there. So maybe there's some correspondence there, I don't know. So we got to the level of the solar system with the planets moving around, like the orbits of the planets and things like that, like the Dvipas and everything. So another way of looking at it is the galaxy, which is also very circular, like this, and very symmetrical as well. If we take all the galaxies in existence together, that forms the modern conception of the universe. What does that universe look like? Modern conception is something like this. It's a toroid, a very strange, like a donut-shaped type thing, coming out like this. So in that center, we have this funny little thing coming out that looks like Mount Meru again. So perhaps the sages, if they get in their subtle body or whatever, and they just go beyond time and space or whatever, they can look at the whole universe from another point of view, and then they can see something like this, and then they will describe it as, like a big lotus with a thingy in the middle like this. And then they transpose that, and then we get like the Bhumandala, etc. So perhaps that's an explanation of it. The whole system also has a correlation with the body. And we say evolution of consciousness. So in the central Sushumna Nadi is compared to Meru. Merudanda also refers to the spinal cord in probably Ayurveda and things like that. And so the whole body of the human being is like a Mount Meru with the planetary systems in it, and upper and lower planetary systems, etc., like the chakras, etc. And even the dvipas are considered to be like, we can say, the coverings of the body. So one can locate the different chakras with the different upper planetary systems. And we could associate the dvipas and the oceans with the koshas of the body, different layers of the subtle body. So they say, sometimes say there's 7 or there's 9 of those. Just like we get the dvipas and the oceans. Or you can associate with the dhatus of the body. So we get sukra, marrow, bone, fat, muscles, blood, and plasma. This again is more symbolic type of a thing. But we see that the body is a reflection of the whole universe we form, the Vishwarupa, which is like a big body with the hands and everything on. And then we get our individual body. We get the whole description of the universe. So they're kind of, one is a pattern of microcosm and macrocosm type of pattern is there also. Okay. Anyway, the conclusion is that it looks a little complicated, but we see ultimately it is very symmetrical. Everything works out down to the, what was it, 500 million yojanas, 500 million yojanas this way and that way, whatever, like this. So it shows the let's say the skill of the creator in manifesting this universe. And then we have all the different layers of consciousness and planets from lowest to highest for different ideas according to their karma. And in each of these lokas, they can reside with their particular bodies and get their little bit of enjoyment. Ultimately, it expresses the skill of the creator in manifesting this universe. Okay, fine. Question, yeah.
Varahadev, we see the deities, the olden deities, as this, the one holding spherical. So you said just Bhumandal that went into the Darbodara Shai, the Darbodara ocean, and then
yes, the Bhumandala. Yeah.
Okay, so there it's spherical.
Actually, Maheshwar, he pointed out he gave a photograph of a deity in Mathura. Was not holding a sphere, he's holding a flat thing in his tusk. There was a Mount Meru in the middle, and there was the whole thing he was holding up. So he says in diction, sometimes they make it like round, but actually it could be either,
Along with local mountain, the entire
Yeah, kind of at the edge, there's a little bit of space around before you get to the universe there, and it actually gives a dimension of how many yojanas on either. There's a space on either side, so it could wobble a little bit. It could tip in because if it was right to the edge, it couldn't do anything. But there's a little space at the edge, so many hundreds of yojanas or thousands of yojanas. So it's a little bit of freedom there, space, and it could tip. So that's why it tipped, and then Vara had to push it up again.
And the elephants holding the woman. That includes the lower 7 and the upper 7 as well.
What is that? They're beneath that thing, below the hellish planets, kind of like.
So do they also take care of the upper 7 also as resting on them, or only the lower 7?
Just that Bhumandala.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Adisesh is at the end of the universe, or where is Adisesh?
That Sesha there, I think, is Ananta Shesha, because he holds up the whole thing. Yeah? He holds up the whole Bhumandala also. So, yeah. How the elephants fit in, I don't know. There's also elephants on the Manasatara mountain range, I believe, sitting up there. But then there's some elephants underneath also, and then there's Shesha holding everything up at the bottom. There's also a turtle there also somewhere. A turtle. That's not described in Bhagavatam, though. But I think in the Pita, on the Vishnu deity, then there's the Pita. So those different, there's petals, and so, I think presenting those different layers, like we have a kurma on the bottom or something like that. Then we got the elephants, and we get the shesha, and all these different things on the Pita below the deity, those different layers.
Maharaj, there's a question online. So the question is, why do we have different oceans for different islands? Is there any particular reason? And how many islands we have?
There's no explanation given why a ghee ocean or why a liquor ocean, why a sugarcane ocean. Is it real milk and real ghee, and who made the ghee? Who turned all the yogurt into ghee or whatever? Doesn't the milk get sour every day? There's no answer to that, how it's like that. So obviously it looks like it's not real grossly material like we know. It is something much more subtle. So there's no explanation given. One thing I thought it was density. That each liquid has a particular density. So maybe that's got something to do with why they're all different, because there's different densities, and those different densities would have different modes of being and different types of bodies and different densities, perhaps. But why each one? Whether there's a relationship between the density of these different things sequentially, because we know dimensionally there's everything's double as you go out. Each ocean's is twice as wide, is twice as wide, twice as wide. So that's symmetrical. Where the densities, I don't know. When we get to salt water and we get to each ocean, if you take the density, then whether there would be some mathematical relationship, I don't know. Someone could try that. See if there is some relationship between those different liquids somehow.
Is the milk ocean, there both also is milk. There's also another milk ocean. So one of the islands is covered by milk.
Yeah.
So there's one milk ocean there, and the Garbhodara also is milk.
No, the Garbhodara is not milk.
Oh, okay.
No.
So then when we hear about all the devatas going to the milk,
that was that milk ocean. Yeah.
Okay, but then Vishnu is lying below.
That's Kirdakta Vishnu.
Yeah.
That's Garbhodaksha on the bottom. Different Vishnu at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maharaj, there's one more question from online, from Isha Khalif. They say, I understand that Bhagavatam describes one sun illuminates the entire universe. How can this be reconciled with our material observation that there are multiple suns throughout the various galaxies?
Yeah, so in one sense we cannot. Of course, now modern science we can also not say is absolute. And they have a dimension for the universe, and then we have the galaxies within the universe and whatever, and we give dimensions. So it's somewhat accurate, but not completely accurate. As I said, this description of this one universe, this is one among many universes. And it's got, I didn't explain about this, a shell outside, and each layer is 10 times bigger than the next. So it's a huge shell outside of each universe. And you can't get through that shell. And then we get the little bit of earth, and then within that we get the local mountain range, and then in the middle we get the little area where people are living on Bhumandala, get the upper planets and lower planets. So it's a little bit in the very center of this whole shell. And that's one universe, and we have infinite number of universes also. So modern science has this different concept, obviously. They don't have shells, and then we have so many universes, but they have solar systems, like suns and solar systems, and then galaxies, and all the galaxies together make a universe. So the comparison would probably be the whole thing is like the universe now is like Mahavishnu with all the expanse of all these universes. That's kind of like the universe as we know it. And then we get the groups within that, like our individual planetary systems or whatever. which looks like the solar systems. As I said, the one way of diagramming this is the different planets and their movements around make up the dvipas. Say that Bhumandala represents the planetary system, so that would be one solar system, so to speak, among all of them. So in that sense, we have a solar system here. Then in another thing, we have another solar system, so in that sense, we get a whole series of these so-called universes to make up everything. So instead of taking it as the whole universe, we can take it as simply the solar system, whatever. But then again, we can say, well, then how can we see all these other solar systems and galaxies, etc., because a shell around it? So that's a contradiction also. So that I can't explain, but there's contradictions in this whole thing.
Maharaj, there's one more question. How do we understand the concept of, like, is there anything related to black hole that we have in modern science?
Oh, yeah, well, we have what is called, we have what, black holes, we have black matter or dark energy and things like that. Ultimately, I don't know black hole, but the dark energy means we don't know what 97% of the universe is. That's all it means. Something is there, apparently, but we don't know what it is because no one's ever detected it. So that's kind of like Prakriti and all the subtle we don't know about and we can't see.
So when we talk about the concept of the anda, there are so many places where Prabhupada writes in his purpose as anda, that the whole universe is like an anda, which is egg-shaped.
Yeah.
What is he referring to? Is he referring to the outer shell or?
Yeah, well, that's the outer shell. Then within that we get the Bhumandala and everything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So everything that you've just described, is there any explanation as to why these things are the way they are? Because, like, let's say you have whatever thousands of yojanas is one ocean, then there's another island, then there's another ocean,
Okay.
double that size.
Uh-huh.
What is the point of all of this? Like, are there living entities living all across
Yeah.
these things?
Yeah, as I said, there was devatas on each of those islands, and then there's inhabitants. They're also described in, I think, Bhagavatam. Each island, one of the kings, he had sons, and he put them on each of these islands, and they populated the islands. So there is living entities on these dvipas also. Yeah. But then the other thing was that each had a deity, like the sun and the moon, etc., Mars, Vayu, like that. So that could correspond with these orbits of the planets. And then we know that planets also have their deities and they have their inhabitants. They're all Svargasphere, actually. So they have inhabitants also on all these different Venus and Mars and everything. So they are places for living, but we can't access those places with our present body.
So can we say that the way everything is designed is, in general, all of it is just meant for fulfilling the various desires?
Yes. And gathering some more karma. And then another body, and then you can go some other place within the universe. So you can experiment and go to different places, in the universe. You can go from Dvipa to Dvipa to Varsha, or upper planetary, lower planetary systems this way.
Maharaj, I have a question. So we many times hear that in Prabhupada lecture as well, like there are millions or those number of planets which can't be counted in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But when we see the structure of the universe, we kind of are able to quantify these 7 planets are there, and over here, like these many planets are there. So it's kind of like we think that it's something that we can count, but at the same time, the figure is like very hugely mentioned that it's unlimited kind of thing. Like,
So besides these, we get the nakshatras and the whole sky with the Milky Way and all that. So that's part of the nakshatra sphere we saw there, where the stars were there. One layer was there. So they're kind of uncountable. So the planets, we have 9 planets, but then we have these other stars, etc., which are uncountable. There's so many of them.
they are like individual planets.
Well, they're stars. They don't describe on those nakshatras, and usually combinations of stars, certain patterns, etc. But they don't really explain whether they have inhabitants. But I would suppose so, just like sun has living entities, so the stars would also have living entities.
And the only illuminating planet is sun. Like the stars do not have their own light. Is that correct? Or-
Well, it seems that we can say they're all dependent upon the sun. They may have some illuminations, like a reflection or whatever like that, or secondary, just like we have fire, and it has a little bit of illumination, so like that, but ultimately dependent on the energy of the sun.
Maharaj, also, in that diagram you showed where you had all those different vehicles and oceans and so forth, on the outer layer, there was just a lot of empty space.
Yeah, half of the universe.
Right. Is there any reason there's just that?
Well, I guess that's the dark area. Maybe that's like the dark matter of in the modern theory. Something out there, but we don't know what it is. But nothing lives there, definitely. So it's just space in one sense. Why it's like that, I don't know. But again, we have like the whole shell. Why is the shell so thick? Each layer 10 times thicker than the other, which makes it huge ultimately. And then the center is so small compared to that. No explanation in one sense, but we see it's all very symmetrical. Half is that, then half in that is the center part. So symmetrical in that sense.
Brihadaramahamsa explains about these shells
Yeah.
having living entities, and there's a deity.
There's a deity in each one also. Yeah. They're heavenly places in one sense. You can live there and you get a lot of enjoyment in each area. So it's not quite what we think of as just layers of matter. There are actually worlds also there with deities in them.
And when the Mahabharata, it talks about how Arjuna and Krishna crossed the Lokaloka mountain, and then they had to go to Vaikuntha to get the boy back.
Mm-hmm.
So it explained that there is, if I remember correctly, Krishna says to Arjuna that there's no living entity can cross the Lokaloka on his own, and only because Krishna was there they were able to cross. So in that sense, when somebody leaves the material world and goes back to spiritual world, so do we understand that Krishna leaves each one of them?
Well, whether he does or not doesn't matter, because his mercy is there, so you can just go beyond it anyway. You're beyond dimensions once you're in your spiritual body, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah. Not only that, then you have to get beyond the layers. And there's a lot of layers out there.
Question, when we see about the shells, like these layers become more and more subtle as we go out. Like
Yeah.
mind, intelligence, once we go. And we also see that everything is created from sound, like this, at least the material matter. So does it also have a layer, or like where does the sound fit in? Is it an encovering, like part of the entire?
Well, sound is part of ether, yeah? Ether and sound are related together. One of the gross material elements. So sound is related to ether. It's the sense object of ether, which is the material element.
I thought sound is subtler than the mind, intelligence, and
No, it's with ether.
There's one more question online, Maharaj. As the Jiva transits between bodies and various systems, does the Jiva potentially go between universes, or is a particular Jiva reincarnate or trapped within one particular universe?
It's not mentioned anywhere, but I would assume it would just stay within one universe. It could possibly do, but not really necessary, because there's plenty of places to go here. Plenty of bodies to take, so it could go anywhere within this universe, so it doesn't have to go to another universe.
Maharaj, one last question from me.
Uh,
In the Mahabharata, when Arjuna goes to see Indra, and then so you were explaining about how we would not be able to cross from one Varsha to the other Varsha.
yeah.
And this thing. So how was it possible for Arjuna to go all the way to Indraloka?
Oh well, he's actually got a spiritual body. So he's like Krishna, so he can go anywhere. In one sense, if Krishna allows him, he can go anywhere.
Okay.
Normally, we cannot go. We need the proper senses and the proper body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, one last question. We say that like 6 months on Earth is like 1 day in Swargaloka and 6 months is like okay. So how does that like reconcile? Because the sun is one and it's just going around, and both Earth and Swargaloka in a way have like flat structure, Jambudvipa and the top part of Meru Mountain.
Yeah. So their day, how could their day be different?
Yeah.
That's also not explained, but they're above the Mount Meru, and it's not explained the orbits of those different planets, just how they're going around. But they wouldn't have a day and night like we have a day and night, because there's no setting of the sun, and like we have a setting of the sun. So therefore, their whole conception of time is measured quite differently from ours. How it operates, I don't know, but definitely it's going to be quite different. In terms of aging, however, it looks like their lifespans is much longer.
One of the interpretations that I have heard is like considering the North Pole as the North Pole of the Earth,
Yeah.
assuming that that's the Mount Meru top. It experiences like even in like the present Earth planet,
Yeah.
6 months day and 6 months night, because the top part receives sunlight for 6 months and then darkness for 6 months.
Yeah.
Days are longer and the
Yeah.
nights are shorter.
So that's
Yeah.
Maybe I have to go up.
So if you go up, then it would be longer days and nights. Slower, yeah, possibly. Okay.
Okay. So, Balaswami,